From Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Rosabianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Matt, I'm going to give you a blast from the past. You remember when you and I met in the canyons of the financial district in the Isle of Manhattan? We would spend our happy hour afternoons on Stone Street, having a nice cold ale on a hot summer day, or maybe at a wine bar afterwards. And this is where we came up with the liquid lunch, right? You did more business over a drink than you did in a conference room. So while you and I were commiserating at 26 years old and probably chasing skirts and drinking ale, this young man, Justin Nelson, was creating an 8-figure business at the right young age of, his mid-20s, which is phenomenal. But that's not enough. He kept segueing into other businesses that were just as successful. So we welcome to the podcast Justin Nelson. Justin, where did you find that determination and discipline at such a young, ripe age to take the business to the next level when all your compatriots were probably doing other less impressive things?
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of goes back to when I was probably about 15 years old. I saw my dad. He was a military guy, did the tours. You know, he was a corporate guy at the same time, working for IBM and a lot of the big corporations. And, you know, I kind of saw him, make a good income, 70, 80,000 a year. And, I always, at that time, that was where my thinking was, is like, I want to make that 70, 80 grand a year. So, at 15 years old, he ended up leaving the corporate world. And he allowed me to start the real estate company alongside of him, really doing the marketing and the cold calling and a lot of those things. And, in about his second year, when I was 16 years old, he exploded and did 300,000-400,000, in income. And all of a sudden I was in this place of conflict. I was like, man, I went my whole high school career getting ready for, in engineering school, because I wanted to make that 80, 90, 100,000 out of school. And then at the same time, I saw someone in just a year and a half, 2 years, completely go to $500,000 in income. And so, I would kind of say that kind of inner struggle in my high school career, I was like torn between both, even though I was kind of the valedictorian, moving in that direction of going to a high prestigious engineering school. It kind of led me to go, wait, if he could do this so fast, and I've kind of watched him build it from the ground up, and not to discredit how hard I know it was, but it also didn't seem like it was 30 years, to break something that he had been making income wise. And so that's kind of where I kind of started what I call my naive path. I was just like, I watched him do it in 2 years, and I was like, that's all I knew. I was like, oh, a business owner can go from 0 to 400,000 in 2 years. I can do that too. So I would say my drive and kind of ambition above my peers kind of came from just like a naive state of just like, oh, it must be easy. So I'd say that's kind of where I got the launch, into that world and realm.
Well, it seems like you and your dad are the manifestation of how the American dream has changed in just the last 2 generations, right? Mm-hmm. So in your father's earnest, he was living the American dream. He was raising a family, and he crossed the T's and dot the I's. He did everything that was right. But the American dream has changed since then. So let's do a little bit of a deeper dive. Talk to us about the VA business, how you were able to scale it. And look, spare us the details about the VA business, because that's a subject that's been beat to a pulp. Mm-hmm. But not everyone can do VAs at the scale you were doing. So we really, really want to focus on how you were able to scale it.
Yeah. So for me, when I actually was on a podcast yesterday and they asked this exact same question, so I'm kind of primed for it. I would say when people are like, how did you go from 0 to 100 employees, on your personal staff within 12 to 14 months? And for me, like the biggest thing, again, it was kind of a naive state. When it came to hiring people, I found that or repetitively, when I looked at other businesses, they would go through a hiring process. They'd go 60, 90 days. They thought they had the perfect candidate. They would get 10 resumes, whatever. They'd go 5, 6, 7, 10 interviews deep. They would hire that person, and that person wouldn't work out. Now they're 3 months in and that position wasn't hired. Or they go 3, 6, 9 months in and they figure out that person's not a good fit just because they were able to trick them in the interview. Something went awry. And so kind of what I started looking at the big corporations, and we see big, massive corporations that spend millions of dollars on a CEO search just for them to come in and mess it all up in the first year. And then they're out, and then they're restarting the process. So a theory that I kind of self-proclaimed and started, and I'm sure a lot of people do this now, but I basically said, for every position that I'm going to hire within our company, I'm going to hire 3 people at the same time for that one position, and they're going to battle it out for that position. So what we found is whenever I started to do that, we found that the cream of the crop rose to the top really, really fast. And because they felt that competition of, I need this job, I'm going to stay in this job, I'm going to beat everybody else out. And honestly, I truly attribute most of our success to that one method, because now we started to have leaders that could run departments without me having to do a lot of the leading, to do a lot of the SOP writing. We started to get people that came with batteries included, is kind of what I called it. They came with the skill set to just run what I told them they needed to run, versus me having to be an instructor. Most business owners are an instructor, and it's hard to scale when you're having to instruct every key position in your business constantly.
Oh, Justin, you raving capitalist, but didn't you hurt the feelings of the other 2 people?
Well, so one of the things that they ask that all the time, well, is that unfair? How did that work? Well, the big thing that we had is what we call mass application. So we focused all of our lead generation efforts on, if I had 10,000 applications come in for a one position that we're hiring, I could find 3 studs within that opportunity that were willing to, on the front end, be told like, hey, this is a competition over this next 60 days. By the way, you're all getting paid for the 60 days. So if you're unemployed right now or you're in between jobs, there's really no harm, no foul. They're getting paid. It's not like a free internship they get. So absolutely, people came in with that understanding. And the other thing too that we found a lot of times is maybe 2 of the 3 were rock stars, but 1 was perfect for that position. But now that because I've been in the proximity of the other people, I could a lot of times plug them into something else in the organization that we had available or created a position for. Because a lot of times people say, don't create positions for people. Well, whenever I'm able to see someone's talent over 90 days, a lot of times I can create a position for them, especially if it's around generating more revenue.
No, that's greatly said. Matt and I just had a very similar situation. We were looking for someone to fill an admin type role, and this person applied, and he was not qualified whatsoever for administrative type work, because he was a born salesman. The guy was an admin. So that was an easy pivot. So Justin, how did you go from the VA business to the real estate business? Now, I asked this with a great deal of humility and sincerity, because there are some people that just have that entrepreneurial gene.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. So it's actually, it's kind of cyclical for me. It's a big circle. So when my dad started his business when I was 15, it was in real estate. So when I went to college, I played college football at an engineering school. That was my final, okay, I'm going to drop out. So dropped out at 19, and I actually became a traditional real estate agent. So I was a traditional real estate agent from 19 to 23 years old, selling homes, doing a lot of that. For me, my biggest problem with traditional real estate was I kind of had to be centrally located in the same area, or at least I thought so. I thought I had to live in the same city, and I wanted to be location independent. So about 23, I had enough what I would call mini stardom within the real estate world to go, hey, how's this 23-year-old making $1 million a year? So I started a coaching company in the real estate realm. Long story short, all of my coaching clients were like, how do you use VAs? How do you use VAs? This was about 4 or 5 years ago. And VAs have been big forever, kind of like you said. It's been, especially since COVID. Everybody's got a VA since COVID. And so I ended up getting into the VA business. And because of the contacts I had, that's kind of what exploded the virtual assistant business. Was my 1,500 coaching clients, helped lead to the 5,000 VAs. And then really at the time in 19 to 2021, while I was doing traditional real estate, I wanted to invest in real estate, right? Like I bought 3 homes from 19 to 21. Those 3 homes made me a millionaire, right? With the equity gains and things like that. But I wanted to go buy more. But the problem I kept running into is the 20% down, right? And so when I started the VA company, I found the VA company with recurring revenue and, some residual income pieces of it. I was like, wow, I saw that as the opportunity to go build something that could provide me the incoming capital to do that. So now, I was just talking to Matt about some funding things the other day. Now that business alone brings in about 6.5 to 7 million a year in residual, just recurring revenue outside of our one-time fees. Now I can take that revenue, and now that I have that revenue, we were looking back into real estate, and that's where I've kind of pivoted my time, is going back into the world of investing in real estate. I think there's different paths when it comes to real estate. Sometimes you have investors that, try and wholesale to get their start, and then they start doing some private money, and then they do creative finance. For me, I wanted to go build a business that had predictable revenue that I could then cycle into the real estate investment world. So that's kind of how I got into real estate. Real estate was my start. And now it's kind of my investment vehicle for a lot of things.
And Justin, where do you find that predictable revenue in real estate? Is it single family? Is it brick and mortar? Is it mixed use?
So for me, then this is kind of counterintuitive. I think a lot of financial guys would probably cringe at this. And for me, I'm such a long-term thinker that I just buy single family. I buy it close to me. I buy it within the same area. Everything I plan to do is 30, 40 year holds, so I know I could probably use the money a little bit better. I know I could probably scale it up into some multifamilies, but for me, I just try and keep it stupid simple. I try and go, I know if I buy this home, even if I'm a little overpaying it, even if there's not massive cash flow, I know if I hold this thing for 30 years, it's going to turn out really okay. So now that my time is getting a little bit back from the VA business, I'm working 10 to 15 hours a week in it versus what used to be 60, 70, 80. Now it's time for me to start sharpening my skills a little bit deeper to, start rolling that cash a little bit faster, focusing on more cash flow in those businesses to be able to scale the portfolio faster.
So your VA company, well, we met,
Yep.
what did we meet? Probably about a year, maybe 2 years ago. We were on a trip at Cabo together.
Yep.
And you were actually speaking at the time. And it was actually pretty cool. So Justin comes off as very simple, right? Very down to earth, but he gave me a little secret. I'm going to tell everybody if it's okay, right? Yeah. So he has a team. How many VAs do you have that work for you personally?
Usually between about an 80 to 130, depending on kind of our season and what we're doing.
Okay, no, but what about you personally?
So so inside of our entity for Sphere Rockets, 80 to 130. For me personally, it's about 10 to 15 at any given time. And they're all broken down into very, very siloed roles, which I'm sure is partly where you're going with this.
Yeah. So why don't you tell that story? Because when Justin showed up in Cabo, he had a dossier, like something like out of Mission Impossible on every single person that was on that trip. And his VA, and he was texting his VA to find out more information about the person as they were up and speaking. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Well, absolutely. So I'll give you a great example today. So obviously, Matt, I know quite a bit about you, and then, I didn't know about your co-host, Luigi for whatever. So my VA brought up a whole document before today's podcast, and they're like, here's the background, here's all the articles, here's all the past podcasts, here's all the past guests they had. And so for me, like when you brought up the story about, kind of how the podcast started, already knew that. I already knew that you guys met on the Wall Street Financial District. So like, it didn't shock me. So when I was out in Cabo, it was a mastermind of probably about 30 people or so that had all paid, $5-10 grand to be in this mastermind location. And so, for me, I had my virtual assistants pull reports on every single person. They went through, if they were on Facebook 10 years, they went through 10 years of Facebook posts. If they were on LinkedIn, so we built dossiers, like I think you said, where now when I go and talk to Matt and he's like, hey, my name's Matt. In my head, I'm like, I know everything about Matt, but I'm not going to say, I'm not going to be like, hey, Matt, by the way, I know your kids' names, your wife's names, your dog's names. I'm not going to tell him that.
You're the J. Edgar Hoover of small business.
Yeah, it'd be so weird for me to come off that way. But here's the thing. When we're in business, if I'm sponsoring a mastermind, my end goal, and this is a selfish goal, but I think if we all get real with ourselves, it's the reason why we do what we do. Is I'm like, well, eventually one day, maybe Matt can become a client. If Matt's not a good fit to be a client, maybe he's got some connections for me. And maybe in the reverse, like, what does Matt need that I can maybe provide just a value, even if it doesn't mean a, monetary exchange. And so by going into a room like that, I just, I have one full-time VA that their full-time job is to do that, to have a dossier on all 30 people. And I walk out of that mastermind with 15 to 18 sales that I know I can attribute to me being able to have conversations with people. Because, like there was a single mom there. Well, now I can have conversations about how virtual assistants can help single moms, right? And get past stories about single moms using VAs. Or, there was another couple that run marriage therapy. Same thing. I've had a client like that, but I knew how to come into that situation. And kind of what Matt's going down is each VA does really interesting things for me. I have an assistant that their only focus is my personal life. Like it's make sure I have groceries. I have cameras pointing at my fridge. If the fridge is empty, the VA orders it. If I'm on the road, they're ordering my Ubers as soon as they see my flight lands. So it's just trying to take all the really crazy things to, increase my time and effectiveness as well.
So we use some VAs over here, right? We really don't use anybody out of the Philippines. I know you're mainly focused in the Philippines, right? We use a lot of people out of South America, and they're awesome. We love them. And I hate the word. I really hate the term VA. Because at the end of the day, we do too. If you use that term VA, man, it's like, you're making them sound inferior to you, right? And that's really not the case because these are awesome people that we have that work with us, right?
Family.
And we've had some really terrible ones too. I'm not going to lie, but I feel like a lot of it was on us when we were first beginning because we didn't train them properly. But you guys do some different stuff too. So how do you put people in the roles and help them hire for the right roles and possibly help them get trained, right? Because you guys are only doing the placement, or has that changed as well?
Yeah. So, we've evolved a little bit. What we're still known for is our placement. So right now in the Philippines, we're averaging about 89 to 90,000 applications a month to work for us. And we're only placing about 200 of them. So, we still kind of pride ourselves on finding the top 1% of, like if you're like Matt's like, I need someone with financial knowledge. Well, cool. I'm going to go pull someone that was a manager of 1,000-person sector of Chase Bank, in the Philippines. And so that's really what we specialize in, but you said it perfectly, Matt. An adjustment we probably made shortly after the trip we met you on is we actually shifted a lot of the training away from the virtual assistants to the employers. Because what we found is 9 times out of 10, the employers were the problem. They had never used a virtual assistant before, or they had never operated well with assistants, or maybe they were a big CEO that had big ideas, but they didn't have the management skills to have someone else in their organization run their international team. And that's actually the term we use mostly internally as our international team, which is, I love that you said that. VA is also not our favorite term in the world. And so kind of on that scale is our international team is comprised of people that already kind of have batteries included, right? So that's kind of also a methodology that we promote within our company is, hey, we should be looking like if someone's not working out for you and that as an employer, you've checked every box, you had the SOPs right, you spent the appropriate time with them, you gave them guidance and the person's just not working out. Well, let's not drag our feet for another 6 months and just hope this person randomly changes. Let's get that person out and let's get a new person in for you. So we do a lot of trainings now. We have 20 full-time coaches. So we have 20 group coaching calls each week for people with virtual assistants. But the biggest change, Matt, that we've probably made since we've known you is every single employer now gets a one-on-one coach as a part of our program. It's mandated. And we've seen our success rate skyrocket with that one-on-one coach, because I'll give you guys a great example of just one simple change. Most people see their international team as robots. And you said it perfectly, Matt. Like they don't treat them a lot of the times like they should be. And they'll send a task and hope the task gets back. And then they'll communicate over email, hey, do this and do that. For me, one of the biggest changes is I just have a computer screen right off here to my right that's got 20 of my team members sitting in there, right? They're in a virtual office with me all day. I can see them. I can talk to them. I can joke with them. I can, give them a task instantly. So I guess that kind of answers your question, Matt, is we do some more training than what but still not full.
So I want to dive a little deeper to what you just said. What do you mean you have a screen to your right with a virtual office with like a program are you using? Is everybody on a Zoom room? How are you doing this?
Yeah. So there's 2 things that you can use. Number one is Zoom Room's the base level. We call it a war room. We use breakout rooms. So there's one main Zoom room that every single virtual assistant logs into every single day. It's the company Zoom room. They need to be there 8 to 5, no different than if they were in an office with me. I need to be able to see them, talk to them immediately, no different than if I dropped into their office. Now from there, they have breakout rooms. So if the marketing needs to go have a meeting, they just jump into the marketing breakout room and they have a marketing meeting. So now when I'm on the go, if I'm in the car, if I'm right in the back of an Uber and I'm like, hey, I have a marketing idea. I can just click the Zoom room. It opens up and I know my entire team of 80 to 130 people are just sitting in there. I can click the breakout room. I instantly have access to all of my people now. If you want to get a little bit more techie, this one's really, really cool. It's called Virbela, Virbela. It's a little bit new school, so some people really don't like it, but if you can get used to it, it's amazing. It's actually the platform that eXp Realty is built on. It's basically you can log into like a computer game type thing where it gives you a little character and your entire organization works out of there. Now, it seems a little bit silly, seems like that, Justin, that sounds kind of Gen X or whatever we are-ish. It's actually really cool. It's built to where you can share screens, look at the people, meet in conference rooms. Gives a little bit of depth to your thing. So those are the two options we use. Most of our clients go with the Zoom War Room idea, but our higher tech clients, especially those that have 50, 100 VAs, will use Virbela.
So this is interesting to me, and I'm learning a lot here. As you can see, I'm writing stuff down as we're talking. So when you have these different, like you have 80 to 100 people, are they all logged into one room, or are they in individual rooms?
So they're all logged into one Zoom room. So we have one Zoom room that has a link that never changes. It doesn't require a passcode, doesn't require any of that. So they all in the Zoom settings, you can change it to a default of anytime anybody joins the Zoom room, they're automatically muted and they're automatically have their camera turned off. So it protects people from it being just this massive noise club.
Okay.
And so we start our day off with a meeting in that room where it's me, my executive team, we're just giving some brief updates. If nothing's really needed, we jump in, say hi, bring some energy. Cool. Everybody's still on mute, no camera. And a lot of people jump on camera, say hi and wave and do things like that. But then from there, the team will then disintegrate into their local breakout rooms, because if you have the Zoom account with the breakout rooms, everybody within there with their settings can just choose which breakout. So then the departments all break out into where they're going. So our recruitment department will then go into a meeting in their breakout room. The marketing department will go into a meeting in their breakout room. And if as leadership, we have something for that day that's like super important for marketing or recruitment or whatever we need to do, or sales, we'll go join their quick little huddle that they have in the morning. So it's kind of like huddle one as a team, as an entire org. Then we'll break into huddle two. It's like, I need to go talk to marketing. I need to talk to sales. And sometimes we don't talk to anybody. So their own, their leaders in their organization lead that meeting. And then from there, the team just stays there all day long to communicate. Obviously, people have to jump off and attend meetings and things like that. So that's cool. But it's just this overall collaboration. And it also helps them feel a lot less lonely, right? A lot of times when people get a virtual assistant, they have one. And it's like, yeah, your virtual assistant's lonely. They're in a foreign country. They haven't gotten, they don't get to go to lunch with you. They don't get to go have a beer, on a hot summer day with you. So we have to be able to provide that sense of community. And, they work a lot harder as a team, and I work a lot harder when I'm in an office with people or get to talk with people like you on this. It motivates me, brings my energy up versus just sitting in my dark room, especially in the Philippines, right? Like one advantage you guys have with South America is they could work day shift and it's the same time zone. In the Philippines, we're night shift. So, you take someone night shift, you double have to make sure that they have a sense of community, have a sense of energy boost, and to make sure they're well rested. Because, you definitely don't want to be overworking people or, trying to push, especially on night shift. I mean, my wife is a night shift nurse here and respiratory therapist, and I see the struggles of night shift. So we try and make sure we cater to where it's it's actually a benefit for them versus a detriment.
That's awesome, man. So VA company, International Team Company.
Yeah.
That's set up. That's going great. You're back into real estate. You just got married. Congratulations.
Yep. Thank you.
Right? So what's next, man? Because you're still young. We're still below 30, right?
Yeah, still below 30, 26. So, this isn't, we were talking about this offline. We were talking some funding. We, for many years, were just, when I say many years, we've been around for 3 years, right? But for really the last 2.5 years, we pushed every extra dollar, right? So if we had a $250,000 profit month, I just said, cool, let's go sponsor Apex for whatever dollar amount and let's go spend it all. And then the next month, 250K profit, we'll go spend it all. So, we were really profitable if we just wanted to sit on our hands. And so really over the past 6 months, we've really sat on our hands a little bit, built up some cash reserves, been a little bit more aggressive. So now, to answer your question, I'm just kind of feeling it out, right? It's the first time in 3 years where all that hard work's paid off. We're just cash collecting a lot of cash, which is a really good feeling. But at the same time, our company doesn't need to go put $1 million into an initiative to grow. We're growing just the way we are. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. I know you and I talked some funding, and some things like that to go look at some more, crazy projects. And I think that's the way my conversation with you was. It's kind of like, I don't know what I don't know. I'm just starting to get my feet wet, starting to try to build some business credit, and do some other things. But to answer your question, the long-term goal, and this is something that's really unique, is I have found a way. I don't know how we did it. It's probably just good people. We have found a way to get our entire organization to march to a goal of selling the company. Like a lot of times leaders don't tell their company that because they're scared that their company is going to be scared. We have done a really good job that everybody in our company is very incentivized to sell. So we're really, they know the number, right? We're at about 500 clients, give or take, that are paying us $1,000 a month each. So, you got that 6 million rev. We know that if we can get that to about 1,500 to 2,000 clients in that range, we can sell for anywhere between 70 and 100 million just based on our books alone. And so our entire team has been motivated, incentivized to be able to march to that common goal and not feel like when they get there that Justin just takes off and they're all jobless, right? Or vice versa. So I'd say that's kind of what's next is, kind of diving back into the businesses I need hourly. If they need some pushes or need some changes or, we're hiring 2 big execs right now. So to answer your question, I really don't know, but I know it's all still moving towards a sellout, which is why I'm also trying to get into the realm of I'm spending a lot of my time and just learning tax law and learning things to where when I go sell for that, I can properly put my money into real estate and, try and not take as big of hits as possible. So that's where I spend a lot of my time and kind of where we're going.
Nice. And what's your biggest vertical? I mean, I know real estate, obviously, because you came from that world. What would you say your second biggest vertical is?
Yeah. So our second biggest vertical is home services. That's a big one. But I'll tell you this, across 3,000 clients now, of course, we're about 50% real estate. That number is slowly dwindling as we get out. But really, it's the other 50%, it's really spread, man. I mean, there's not really any one vertical that I would just say is another 30% or another 25%. We've really started to focus on more verticals of revenue is where we really focus. So we have a program now for people that are under 100K a year in revenue. We have a program for people that are 100 to 750. And then we have more of a corporatized 750 plus, right? And that's one thing that I failed at is as a business, I kind of just assumed everybody needed the same level of service. And so, we would throw a $75,000 a year earner that needed an assistant because they had the funds to do it and everything. But I was trying to give them all this high level coaching and all they needed was just to pick up the phone 5 more times a day to make their next $100,000. And the corporates were like, why am I watching training on lead gen when I'm trying to get a VA international team member that can manage my other 50 of them? So, so I would say that's really been the biggest thing. So the verticals have now become more price segments. And to be honest with you, and this is maybe can lead into what you wanted to ask about with the DOJ and real estate, like real estate's kind of been in turmoil for the last year. And just when I say turmoil, from a virtual assistant company standpoint, we thrive in 2 markets. We thrived right in COVID when agents were making more money than they could know what to do with. So they needed help and homes were flying off the shelves. And then we also thrive in a market where there's a lot of uncertainty and people are trying to cost reduce. There's probably been for about a year now where everybody's just kind of stalled and they're looking around at each other, right? There's DOJ lawsuits. There's, obviously the interest rates have jumped through the roof, so people are like, oh, I don't want to sell. So your average, business owner kind of just stalled and looked around to go, I don't want to hire more people. I'm not going to let go of my people. I'm not going to let go of my US based staff and try to, replace them with, international team members. So I would say that it's been a very interesting last year, in that perspective.
So Justin, Matt and I think that one of the reasons you have such a happy disposition is that you've been working in 2 fields that are not very highly regulated.
Yep. Absolutely. 100%.
So the DOJ, they walk around with a hunter's rifle and they pick and choose their victims, whoever they want to put a bullseye on. And right now it seems to be the real estate space.
Yep.
Your personal opinion, because in your young age, you've been in the real estate business for a long time and you have a lot of experience in it and you come with a fresh approach with someone that's in the trenches. So kind of walk us through what you think will come of this DOJ.
Yep.
I like to say less than genuine pursuit of real estate professionals.
Yeah. So, I think in first and foremost, we all know that they're going to try and pick the weakest part of the unregulated industry to be able to take control over, right? So the biggest part was price. I call it price fixing. You can call it whatever you want. Like they wanted to go over this open-ended commission, right? They wanted to go over like, hey, you can't provide this, you can't provide that. here's kind of my just straight, and I know there's a lot of different pieces of the DOJ. The one that's most worrisome to most agents right now is what you offer as a buyer's agent versus seller's agent and things like that. The reality is for the last 10 years in this great market, in most markets, buyer agents could be offered 1 cent, right? The thing that's being argued right now is, can they offer nothing? Can they offer 1 cent, nothing? Can they do that? So for me, I believe that the industry is always going to just move on, the way it is. I do think it's going to knock some people because they're scared or they're scared of regulation. But I think it's one of those things that whatever happens, those that are willing to put in the hours and work through it are going to do just fine and probably thrive in it. I mean, you said it perfectly. I love industries that don't have a lot of regulation. A lot of my clients are in the financial industry. And when I hear the things that they can or can't do, I'm just like, I couldn't do it. So I give massive props to you guys that are in the financial industry for being able to deal with that. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't scare me too much. I mean, sure, I don't love the DOJ's hands in it, but I also understand, there could be some benefits as well, especially for those unscrupulous that were, doing things not properly.
Justin, thanks so much for being here today, man. We really want to be respectful of your time. Can
Absolutely.
you tell everybody before we let you run on where they can find Rocketsphere?
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys, and how to get in touch with you on the social.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin Nelson, pretty straightforward on all socials. There's not too many of me running around, so you guys can feel free to hit me up there. I do respond to all of those. It's not my virtual assistant responding.
I don't know how that is, because that's a pretty common name, bro. But you come up everywhere.
It is. Well, and it's funny. One of the things we do, and this is, Matt, you might appreciate this, is we have virtual assistants run podcasts for us. So we have dedicated virtual assistants, and they, for example, in the real estate sector, our podcast host is a virtual assistant. She's awesome. She's from the Philippines, and she hosts 80 to 100 podcasts a month for us. So she shoots 4 a day. And she interviews top real estate agents from around the country. So that's part of the SEO that we do, just to, show and register. And so Justin Nelson, and then obviously hireleverage.com, HIRE leverage.com is where you can find anything about the VA's international team members. And obviously.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So listen, you're doing a lot of interesting things outside the box that people don't even think about using their international team for.
Mm-hmm.
But how long are those podcasts that she's doing? Are they short ones? Are they long ones?
That's great. So they're 20 to 30 minutes. The big key is the host, or not the host, the guest. They already know the questions that are going to be asked. So it's very cadenced. So that way it's very smooth. They know the questions that are going to be asked. They're sent ahead of time. So yeah, so I mean, it's about, if each podcast is 30 minutes long, it's 2 hours of their day, right? So if we're paying someone full time, they're spending 2 hours every business day shooting a podcast. Obviously, my personality could not do that. Even 4 a day would I'd go crazy. So it's definitely more of like a news anchor personality, right? Someone that thrives in that. But for us, I mean, you guys are business people. You know exactly what I'm doing here. I'm now getting 80 people to know the Sphere Rocket brand, because Sphere Rocket is the intro commercial, it's the lunch commercial, and it's the post-out commercial, right? And so now, Sphere Rocket's getting thrown in the faces of our guests, but that's not the intention, because then what we do with that, and this is probably the coolest AI technology I've found recently, is something called Opus AI. OPUS.ai. Is what we do is we throw it in there, and it will create us between 30 and 40 short clips with the new trend, the Alex Hormozi subtitles and all of that. And it clips it all, and it does it all instantly. So it takes about 5 minutes, and it will make 30 to 40 just beautiful clips of the podcast. So now I send those to our guest, and it's branded Sphere Rocket, of course, with the watermark. And so now we're getting 80 guests in our target niche each and every month. And of course, as a business capitalist, those guests aren't making $2,000 a month, right? They're all making $250,000 plus a month, or not month, sorry, $250,000 plus a year. So now I'm targeted 80 people, and I'm spending $1,000 a month on our international team member, which is amazing pay. And they're just hosting a podcast and doing what they love. So I love that. You're right. Very, 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 unique ways to try and lead gen and do things that have a lasting effect. So
that's so cool, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Justin, I love everything that you're doing, my man. Keep it up. One question before I let you run. I know you're in Tennessee, but do you see yourself moving outside anytime soon?
I see myself acquiring several more properties. I mean, I love Tennessee. I love The only thing that would maybe make me move is if we don't get a damn baseball team. You know, I'm a huge sports fan. I'm a huge sports fan. So I'm always at sports, always at an NFL game, an NHL game, pretty much every time they play. So if we get a baseball team.
You have nothing to worry about. Those professional leagues follow the buck, and no one's spending more bucks than Nashville.
Oh man, I'm telling you, we just looked into getting a box suite at the Predator Stadium, and it's like tripled over the last like 5 years. So everything is geared towards corporate money coming in. So I love it and hate it at the same time. But as a capitalist, I have no complaints. So
Justin, thank you so much. Everybody, that's a wrap at the Liquid Lunch Project. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Liquid Lunch Project.